Hey guys, welcome back to the 1v1 podcast. I am your host Flatus, and today I have a very special returning guest. He is the host of the Theory Forge podcast. It is our boy Phantom X. What is up, brother?
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be here. I think it's number 3.
Dude, yeah,
Pretty sure.
you've been here quite some time, and honestly, like I've been really wanting to sit down and have a chat with you. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on currently in phase 3. There was, people, of course, then start making videos. You were streaming phase 3 for a lot of it, and then of course we just got to a point of we got to kind of step away, and so I just want to kind of get your journey, like, like, can you talk about the process of testing phase 3 for you? How was it? Like, where are you currently? Just all that.
I mean, I think I've reached a state of many of us have, perhaps you as well, of almost like burnout, still wanting to be supportive, but hitting that sort of, you know, while I stream early, I stream Saturdays, Sundays typically in the mornings. And I don't know, man, it got, we get to where it's hard to do the same thing over and over again. But I'm going to be back once we get to Harbingers and just needed a break, but
Well,
it,
isn't that
go
not a
ahead.
bad thing though? I mean, you've actually closed alpha tested many games before, right? Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, I think there's this perception in the Ashes community where it's like, oh, these people are taking breaks. It's like, oh, they're not real testers, or they're not, Ashes isn't for them or whatever. It's like, no, dude. Like, we've been testing, like, you and I and a lot of other content creators, a lot of people in general have been testing for almost a year. I mean, alpha tests typically don't do that.
No, I agree. Actually, I was thinking that as you were saying that. I think it's 100% healthy to step away. We've seen what
Yeah.
happens when you don't. As I think Stephen has referred to them as crash outs or things like that.
Yeah.
There's always so much repetitiveness. I think anyone, even if you're wanting to be supportive, which I think I still try to be supportive. I think a lot of people do look at us at times, and if content creators take a step back or say anything negative, it's all of a sudden, oh, you don't care about this. You're just trying to get your negativity in so you can get some views and move on. I
Mhm.
think we all want this to succeed, but yeah, I mean, over the course of, I mean, we got to look back. It's been what, 8 years now of this 2016.
Yeah.
Was it 8 years? 2017 is when Kickstarter was.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we've taken breaks, but before with our Dash and Forge, sometimes you just do got to step back. I do think it's super okay and healthy to do so. At some point,
Yeah.
you just get so far under the water with it that I don't know that we get to where we're even offering positivity feedback wise to the developers. So it's good to come back, take a break.
Yeah. Refresh yourself.
Looking forward to Harbingers for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, so kind of tell me about, your phase 3, like, your impressions with phase 3. Um, and do you feel like the direction that Ashes has been taking, maybe with the economy or maybe with the game in general, like, do you feel like it's in a good direction? Do you feel like we're backtracking? Like, just in your opinion, like, what do you feel like's going on?
I mean, compared to I think 2 to 3, there's overall positivity, right? Servers moving towards the dynamic gridding, things like that. The world is definitely bigger.
Yeah.
It's arguable whether it's filled with anything of much
Also true.
fun right now, but there are clearly steps in the right direction. Um, I do worry about where things are going, and I mean, I've talked about this openly. I put videos out there. I start looking at the biggest thing right now that I think everyone talks about is marketing. Like, what are we actually doing here with trying to market a product at this point? And that starts putting off little flags in my head as to like, okay, what's the overall goal? Like, and that's where I think I put out a video on marketing. I put out a video saying that beta will be here in next year, which people laugh at me about, but we'll see. We'll see if I'm wrong or not. Um, I think it all is fine. I've even put out a video on cutting the world in half. Like, okay, what if we
Yeah.
just release with one continent, not two? And I actually think all that would be fine. Where I'm at is I wish they would just be for a game that wants to be very transparent and open. I feel like there are things that we just don't know about.
Right.
And maybe it's overstepping to say, hey, Steven, if you're going to cut things out, we should know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we're not entitled to know, but um, there's just a
Maybe,
lot of little things like that.
do you think maybe they know? Like, I mean,
Yes. What set this off? And this is not PI related or anything like that. So anything I say in here is not at all PI. Um, what really set me off this path of thought was way back almost a year ago when Steven he did like 3 streams or something. He was going to start streaming regularly and did for like 2 or 3 streams, and then that never happened anymore. And but during those, I think twice actually,
yeah,
because they did record them. They're on YouTube.
right.
You can go, and he talks about that the team and they've met, they've discussed things that they would like to do, but are going to push to post launch. And that's that when he said
Yes.
that, that's where I first caught my attention, and then it's been trying to pin that down ever since. And and it's continued. I mean, talking about expansions with Vertec and Chibi and that they already have a plot line for the first expansion, and that starts me wondering about the Underrealm. Like, okay,
The
are you
Tolnar.
gonna yeah, do you already have this first expansion set up because it's something we've been expecting but we've not seen? Like, I don't know. So I have to think there have been some very tough discussions that they've had. We all know Steven has a lot of money, but he doesn't have endless riches.
No,
And even if you're rich, you don't want to just piss it all away, right? You want something in return. So
absolutely.
I have to imagine they've had some very difficult conversations and probably have had to make some choices like that. And
I mean, haven't a
I don't
lot
know.
of like Kickstarter MMOs, like most of them are like super ambitious, most of them never even come to fruition. But I feel like every MMO always ended up cutting or making concessions on systems or design. And Ashes, I mean, as far as I've known, it's, going back to Lazy Peon video, it was such a massive scoped game. Like, and I've said this before many times on my podcast and my videos, that this game felt like WoW plus 4 expansions. Like, that's what the base Ashes game feels like in my own comparison to my head. And I just thought, man, this is just too much, and certain systems are just way too deep. And believe me, I'm all for deep systems because most of the time we get ponds and puddles of systems for games, right? Like it's quite crazy. But I also feel too, you know, financially, it's not like we're backed by some billion-dollar company. You know what I mean? And recently with what happened with AGS, I mean, they're a billion-dollar
Mm.
company. You know what I mean? I mean, Bethesda, EA, like all of these companies, have these massive layoffs, or they like are making a certain game and then kaput. It's just, we're washing our hands of it. You know what I mean? And it's been 8 years. It's actually going to be 9 years next year, which is kind of crazy for Ashes. And so I'm just sort of wondering, you know what I mean? Like, you're right, Steven isn't made of money. And I'm thinking to myself, and I really hope you're wrong, Phantom. Like in my geeky, nerdy MMO brain, I want Ashes to be the MMO that it set out to be. But realistically, I think to myself, man, like, you could be right. And it would hurt me if you were right. Um, but I just, when I saw that video about the whole one continent, the one thing I fear for a game like Ash is that because there's so many MMO players that really want to play a new MMO, having 2 starting zones, oh my God, even with dynamic gridding working phenomenally, you're going to have an endless queues. Like, unless they do something like where they can, have like a variable spawning instead of, if you pick,
Mhm.
let's say the Riverlands, that you don't just spawn right there in the cathedral like everyone else. Like, maybe there's could be some separation at the spawning points to allow some, faster queue times. But it's like if they keep just two starting areas for the actual launch of Ashes with potentially millions of people wanting to play with only 8 to 10,000 concurrent players, you're gonna have 12-hour queues, 20-hour queues. Like it's gonna be insane.
Yeah, or I mean, I think they just spin up more servers. You know, they seem pretty consistent on 8 to 10K concurrent, which
Yes, they do.
is surprising to me, especially if you get the
Dynamic.
dynamic gridding working.
Yeah.
Um, I think you're right, but I think I don't know. There's still a cynic in me that thinks, well, they know they only want 8 to 10K. Even with four starting areas, I don't know. I start to wonder if it speaks to their either one, it's either their expectations of player numbers or their expectations of where they're going to be able to take their server tech. Because I still think 8 to 10 concurrent just seems so low that you'll have to spin up other servers. The world it really, if you only have 8K concurrent, think about how it was with us at the start of Alpha 2, which is really the only time we've had really realistic numbers given to us by the Intrepid folks, and it was what 8 or 9K
Yeah.
concurrent they got up to somewhere in there. you know and that's with basically the Riverlands. And it's still, it felt a little crowded, but not super crowded. So you take that same amount of people and put them across the entire Western continent. I don't know. I worry that's too few, but um, so yeah, queues, sure. We've New World had that issue, not anymore. But with Night
Yep.
Haven, I couldn't even get in.
Yeah.
Um, I could get into stream Saturday, Sunday mornings because it was like 6 in the morning. But if I tried to play anytime other than that, man, it was what 2,000, 3,000 person queue.
Yeah. It was popping in Nighthaven. I mean, people were playing. I mean, I checked Steam charts and it was like at least the PC player side, it was like 50,000 concurrent players playing in on Steam. But I mean, with console, we don't know how many people are playing on console.
Right.
But there's also been, Phantom, you've been here since literal day one, back in 2017. There's been a lot of talk about the vision of Ashes and the vision of Ashes changing, um, almost pivoting in certain ways. How do you feel about statements like that? Do you feel like the project has shifted or changed in some ways from the original design?
Yes. Now, I will start that by saying they're core pillars that Stephen always refers to, and depending on where you look, they are slightly different. Kickstarter had four, and then there was an article that went up after that or before that actually that had like five different ones. But anyways, that's an argument I've been in with Lex before. But anyways, um, I will say those pillars. When you look at nodes, you look at meaningful conflict, economy, and narrative. Those things have not changed. So to the
No, right.
core root, the game is still as it was. Now, I think there's a very clear, and I don't know if you, I think you've probably been on some of these conversations I've had with Jamie. There's been a very clear sort of pre and post Jeffrey Bard, um,
Mhm.
and I'll talk about it almost when you look at Ashes when it started coming online. That was right when EverQuest Next was going offline. So as EverQuest Next was getting closed down, Ashes of Creation was getting started up, and of course, Intrepid started off with a lot of SOE/Daybreak developers, Jeffrey Bard being one of them. And so when you look early on, it almost the goals of Ashes of Creation almost parallel EverQuest Next goals in many ways. And so I do think though when you look at that with Jeffrey Bard and then you look post when Steven sort of took over as creative director, I do think there's been changes. The biggest thing would be in the sort of realm of PvP. When you look at things like lawless areas, things like the open seas being, corruption free. That was never in the design plan at the start. Like those things, you just don't find them because they just weren't.
Right.
Those came about after Bard left. So I do think there's been changes like that for sure. which, I think PvPers will argue that they don't really care because I think they feel like PvP sucks right now, because it's weird because I think if you talk to a lot of folks, like they don't feel like they can PvP, even though we've shifted towards PvP. I don't know. It's a whole corruption system related, I'm pretty sure. But
I think it's just more there isn't meaningful PvP, right? There isn't things
yeah,
for us to there's no incentivization for it. And I kind of argue there really isn't incentivization even in PvE. Like unless you're just trying to build up your gear, what's really the incentivization to go to a POI and grind other than just you achieving a level? Like and I think, you know, again, I don't really, I'm not upset about it because we're in an alpha, right? But I think people also honestly get upset at that statement. They get upset at the statement of like, well, they've also been working on this game for 8 years. Like, where is everything? But I think most diehard Ashes people probably have the assumption the way I do, maybe the way you do too, that they didn't really start the actual, like the real production of Ash as a creation until 2021. Like whenever they shifted to UE5, that's really when everything went down. I don't know if you agree with that or not before.
yeah, I think there was definitely a reset. I'll joke that it's kind of a joke, but it's also kind of real, that this is their third iteration. I mean, you have APOC, which, you know, we took nothing from, like literally. I don't think anything from APOC has made it to Alpha 2.
Yeah.
And then of course you have Alpha 1 and then Alpha 2. But yeah, I do think once you switch to UE5, both from like a tools perspective, because Stevens even talked about this. I think it was maybe like the Lazy Peon interview. There was an interview he did, and he talked about that a lot of their tools they had developed for UE4 didn't really come over with UE5. So there really was a big reset. Um, and that's also, they really didn't have the workforce until that point either, where they're starting to ramp up. So yeah, I mean, makes you wonder what they were doing for, you know, 4 years, from 2017 to, to
Well,
2021.
and
Um,
do you think that was to me? And again, when you're a novice, right? Like Steven came into this industry completely blind, never being, I don't know if he's ever been a CEO of anything, but being a CEO of a gaming company is, I would assume his first forte into this industry. And he always talks about that, right? So I would assume those first couple of years are probably a lot of mistakes and a lot of, I want to use this word, but I feel like maybe certain employees took advantage of Steven's naivete a little bit, maybe, and kind of elongated certain things, or maybe there was just certain design things that they couldn't, square up on, or maybe nail down, or because there was just so much shifting that happened, right? Because Steven in 2018 was still saying this game is going to be delivered in 2020. He said that at PAX, like so clearly there was like something that clicked that, okay, wait a minute, we're not going to be able to deliver that. So my thing is that I think, having the right people around you is very, very important. And I'm not saying that he had the wrong people, but I also feel like sometimes you just kind of have to get your feet wet and kind of do it yourself and do the work. And maybe he relied so much on the information of others that I think he just kind of had to learn the information himself and make his own decisions. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. This is all conjecture. It's all, just my own personal assumption. But I think there was just a lot of growing pains that happened from 2017 to probably 2020. And I think there was just also just, conceptual design too. Like, how do we want this to really look? Like, how do we want a biome to look? Like, you know what I mean? And again, you have to understand too, right? Like, a lot of projects, like you have Throne of Liberty that was in development for 12 years. And we all say like, oh, that development was hell or whatever. But look how many times they restarted. You talk about resets, that game reset like 4 or 5 times. Like initially it was supposed to be like an ARPG style, like isometric style game. And that completely shifted. So I'm not trying to give Intrepid shit, because I feel like this is just kind of par for the course for a lot of gaming companies. Like sometimes a vision gets fruitioned and they're like, yeah, this is not what we thought it was. Let's just start over, or let's pivot, or let's keep this thing but scrap everything else. Like I would assume that happens all the time, developing a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone gets to ask Steven, I would imagine he would say he would do things differently. That there were definitely mistakes made early on. Because even I think he's referred to his past self as idealized Steven or something like that, where
I would
he
assume,
kind
yeah.
of talks about how, oh well, this is how I had hoped it would be, or how I had wished it would be back in 2017 versus what I am now, and understanding what's possible. Um, I don't know if it was anyone specifically misleading versus just a group of enthusiastic people that got together and had, all these great ideas for systems. And, theoretically, yes, we can do this, we can do that. And then you start actually putting in the work. And, you run into the roadblocks. I mean, look at
Yeah.
nodes. We're still like, I don't know, that's a big one for me, is nodes. That's the whole thing I bought into ashes on. And we still haven't,
Yeah.
God, what did they put out the first nodes one article? Like, I mean, that's
Oh,
been
2018.
6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, 2018
7 years
was
ago.
Nodes 1. It
Okay.
was like, I think their 3rd or 4th video, because I literally just looked this up. Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah. Or to be
So
settlements. I guess now we could just go settlements one rather than node three. But
I mean, okay, so settlements back then was 103. Initially with castles and everything was going to be 115 in total. So that whole thing got condensed down. And I think 85 nodes was probably the way to go. I just feel like there's just things that now I get worried because financially, I hope Intrepid's doing okay. But when I hear marketing, I hear we need more money. And I always assume that because any indie startup, like when I hear of any indie anything, like the one thing they always joke about is like, hey, can we have money? Because it's like, you're always kind of operating in the red, right? And it's like, I think realistically, to continue forward, like you can't continue forward unless the lights can be on, unless people can stay employed. And when you're working in California and you're paying insurance, you're paying all these things and you're paying salaries, like stuff adds up real quick. And, and I think I just, as much as I don't want to make concessions, I feel like I'd rather make the concessions to not lose ashes. Because I think losing ashes would be another huge blow to the MO genre. Because as much as people like to meme on ashes and call it a scam or whatever, I really do think that if ashes can make it to a live launch, I think people will truly like this game. Given of course that we have like some of the paper designs, freeholds being what they should be, nodes being what they should be, the economy being what it should be. Hopefully the whole progression of endgame could be what it should be. Like there's just, again, a lot of wants, but I think within the year of Alpha 2, we haven't seen a lot of the things that people players are wanting to be manifested. I know story arcs, like content, you know what I mean? Like we've seen the things like the back end stuff of content that we can't really play. Like you can't play the Riverlands. Like you can, but you can't, like tangibly. And I think the things that people are actually wanting is the things that feel like the fun stuff, the content driven things. And Harbingers being I would say one of the first real world events and potentially like a story arc that we can actually go through. What are you envisioning from Harbingers? Like, what are you personally wanting from this system?
uh, well, when they first mentioned it, first thing I thought it was New World, but corruption based sort of areas popping up that multiply. Um, I got to be honest. I'm not sure what I'm expecting. It's
I'm not sure
you
either.
obviously hope for the you obviously hope for the best, but when they talk about PVX and they want to do PVE objectives and PvP objectives, I mean the reality is, having it be a lawless area as well, I think is a bad idea. Personally, I know that they apparently feel like that has to be put in to drive this threat of PvP and risk and reward and whatnot. Steven's favorite words, but I mean, there's already people in Discord talking about how they are going to let corruption spread. They are their singular goal is going to be killing everyone trying to do PVE objectives. So I don't know. I look at that and I think, is the system really going to work that well? And who's it really geared towards? Is it level 25s? Like I don't know that they've commented on that. Is it max level? content? Is it something a level 18 person could jump in on? If so, I imagine 25 legendary decked out folks would just eat up level anything below level 25. But so I don't know. The hard part is that we're what, November is 18th, so we're only
I think
like
so.
20
Couple.
days, 3 weeks away. Is that right?
Mhm.
And we've not even seen it hit PTR. I mean, I'm pretty sure it'll be delayed, but we'll see. Um,
I kind of hope it
I
is,
just, I
personally.
yeah, I don't know when you're, this whole thing of PVX wanting to blend in PVE players and PvP players is fine, and I get it that it's hard, but when your main systems are based in lawless zones, um, I think it was linked in one of our discords. Was there was an Icy Veins tweet put out or something? Hey, all you New World people, come join Ashes of Creation. If you look at the comments on that, like so many folks are like, I don't want forced PvP. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Um,
How do you
I don't
feel
know. I
like
don't this.
how do you feel about the design of PVX? Like, now that we've been in alpha for about a year, like, we always talked about it, right? Like, that's all speculation before we got to play it. Like, are you still on board with PVX, but are you leery on what particular systems should be PVX and what things actually should just be, this is a PvP thing, this is a PvE thing? Like, how's your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I mean, I still think the term's a marketing term just to try to make PvEers comfortable with the idea of PvP. But I mean, the reality is, so far everything has been fine. I mean, I've been jumped a few times, but I mean, it's not like there's been a bunch of murder hobos out there trying to just kill everyone on sight.
No.
Um, so I think there's a group of people that hear that and they have this fear that they're just going to be constantly PK'd over and over and over and over. And that's not really been an experience unless you've probably irritated someone.
Right.
Um, it is possible, but I just worry that even with the threat, so I think the majority of like new world players, the moment they get in and they start spend 2 hours harvesting and then they get killed, like even if they know the person's going to get corrupted out of that, like that's still a big hit to take for someone who really was not wanting to PvP tonight. Like that's a
True.
and how you get over that hump, I just don't know. And then when you start tying in specific things, like okay, if you have crafters that need really good resources, but you're going to put all of the best resources in areas that are lawless, if that becomes a design, like the people that are going to, they're not going to go grab those things. So I don't know. I still do worry that you're just artificially lowering your player population. And I get it. A lot of people will always come back and say, well, look at Lineage 2 or look at Arc Age, which is where this is based off of, and there was PVX there and players and it still had high numbers. Yes, that's true. But you also had a lot of areas that people could have fun that they didn't have the threat of PvP. And that just doesn't exist. Well, I guess there is technically around
They
guards, but
they do exist. It's just there's nothing incentivizing. Like, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah.
currently, there just really isn't anything enticing a PvEer in a safe zone other than I can just freely gather and not be messed with, but you technically can, but you can't. Um, and I think for PvPers, like, yeah, you can go to a lawless zone, but like, what's the point? Like, other than just me PvPing, like, if I'm already a PvPer, like, what's the extra? Like, what's what's the thing? You know what I mean? What's the carrot? And I think the carrots are just all kind of missing right now. I think the PVX design I'm okay with, like, I really am, but I'm kind of right there with you that I think there should be things that PvEers can do within their spaces, just like how PvPers have their things to do within theirs. Like, I think
Mhm.
keeping it fair is kind of what people are wanting. But I feel like there's also a group of people too where it's like, oh, well, anything that involves PvE, like, there should always be that threat of PvP. And it's like, well, not necessarily, because it doesn't really work the opposite way. When you're a PvPer, there's no threat of PvE like jumping in on you and ruining your day. You can just PvP and that's it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's just a matter of certain PvP things that I think will keep the PvPers happy, like dueling, arenas, potentially battlegrounds, and then rewards that tie to them. I think that's really all PvPers are kind of wanting right now. Like, is because if you keep those people over there, In those things, the PvEers will stay like in the world, gathering, crafting, grinding POI spots, like having fun, doing their thing. You know what I mean? And occasionally there will be certain systems or certain story arcs that will be a PvX design. But in my mind, it won't really be that bad because I've had my space, and now there's this thing that I have to understand. If I go into it, there's going to be PvP involved. You know what I mean? But I also feel like there should be some world events that aren't PvX. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to flag by going to this thing. I think there just needs to be a variety of different world events. Like I really hope Intrepid thinks about this in the sense of their world design or their event design, that, hey, like not everything should constitute like a PvP part of it. You know what I mean? You can have just like a PvE thing, So I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh no, I agree. I'm kind of smiling though because I don't think Stephen would agree with this. I think he would get on that whole risk versus reward. But I do think you have a point. And specifically, I think you would hopefully look into instancing some things, and that would probably be the easiest way to add in a pure PvE experience that doesn't really interfere too much with the overall world because it's over here in its own little pocket. Um, and there were rumors they were working on stuff like that, but we've obviously not seen anything like that at all. I also worry though where the state of the game right now too, because here I am kind of talking a lot about PvEers staying away because of the PvP. Um, Now I'm not a humongous PvPer, but also I hear a lot of those folks are frustrated too, specifically because corruption is so overtuned right now.
Yep.
Um, and so they're not even having fun, like you said, having fun with PvP either. They can't go out and just try to, you know, um, mess with people or do whatever it is they want to do because they feel like it's too overtuned. Which is interesting because then you still have PvEers that worry about the threat of PvP. So where does that balance come? I have no idea. That is, I think it's actually kind of telling that corruption has not changed this
Oh,
entire time. Like
but
they
Steven has
actually the
mentioned that it
last
is
few
overtuned. He has mentioned it was overtuned.
he has, and the last changes they've made to it. I think I'd have to go way back at the start of the phase, but I'm pretty sure they actually made it tougher. Like they overtuned it twice to make it more penalizing. But since then they've not reduced it. And so the question is sort of why? Why have you not, if you're really trying to test your system, specifically when it comes to economy. Now economy is all sort of jacked up right now, so there's a lot of other things. But if you're really wanting real world data, I would think you would want your corruption to be more or less adjusted to where it should be so that people are actually coming out and PvPing and doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing that also influence things like the economy. Um, and so I don't know. There's the little voice in the back of my head that also looks at that and says, is there a reason they've not changed corruption? And is this sort of what we're going to have? Like, is this their balance between? Because you can still go out and get corrupted, all day long, and you can still have your buddies kill you and
Loot your
keep your
stuff.
gear and stuff. There's ways around it. So I also wonder how much we really should realistically expect corruption to change. Because I don't know that it will, but um,
I think a lot of
I
PvPers
don't
would
know.
be really upset if it doesn't change.
Oh no, they would. They would. They would. I think a lot of PvPers would also be upset if you moved certain things to instance content where that they can't get in and disrupt as well. So
Uh,
um,
but
I don't
that's
know,
like
man. That's
that's
the whole that's the
that's like
whole like you can't please everybody. So
but that's like saying like, oh, I don't want arenas to be instance because I want to mess with them while they're fighting, the other team. Like it's a very dumb argument in my mind because it's like there's other players in the world. It's not like, oh, you're gonna have a couple like two dungeons that are instance. It's not like all the PvEers are gonna be in there all day. You know what I'm saying? Like most dungeons are like 20, 30 minutes. It's not a big deal. And it just depends on what kind of lockouts they have for it. There's plenty of things Intrepid can do, but it's nice to know as a PvEer there is something you can look forward to, that even if it is 20, 30 minutes long, that you can go into uninterrupted and just focus your combat on PvE things. That's kind of what I want to talk to you about next. I'm actually kind of in the process of outlining my next video, and it's about being a casual dad playing Ashes.
Mm.
I've, I came into this game, you know, married, had one kid, now I have three. And, there's a lot of people that say that you can't play Ashes 2 or 3 hours a day and do anything significant. So coming from another family man, like how do you personally intend to play Ashes of Creation? Are you going to play Ashes of Creation 6 to 8 hours a day? Are you planning just to play it for maybe a couple of hours like myself and see how far we can get? Like how are you just going to play Ashes like when it live launches?
Yeah, I mean, as it is, I don't think there is any room for casuals to be highly successful.
Yeah.
Um, now do they fix the grind and everything? I hope so, but or at least break it up to make it not feel so bad. But I do think the casual sort of got a family, got a job, got a whatever. Ashes is probably not something you're going to be a top tier person in. As things are, they're all geared towards the really sweaty folks. And even if we get some of the grind fixed, I don't think you fix that. I think that is just a component of how it's designed.
No.
I know for me, most of my most of the time I do Ashes is when I'm streaming. So that's about 8 hours over the weekend. Now, part of that's also been because I've just been burned out and I've just not cared to log in outside of streaming when I streamed it. But
No.
most certainly will hell no to 6 hours a day. Like there's just no possibility of that ever happening. Um, so where do I get? I don't know. Hopefully
Yeah.
there's somewhere I can fit in and have fun. And, I was hoping that would be in the crafting realm, the sort of artisanship kind of driven aspect of it. That's probably still where I'll be with some leveling, but um, yeah, I don't know that it's a casual friendly game at all.
I would argue Vanilla WoW was not a casual friendly game. If you take it in the same comparison of a race, if you only had 2 or 3 hours to play, you were going to be completely left behind.
Yeah.
People were going to outgear you. People were going to outlevel you. People were going to get better gear than you, craft better gear than you, do more things than you. So, in that same sense, to me, Ashes is just as casually unfriendly as World of Warcraft. But why did World of Warcraft work? Well, in 2004 and 2005, when I started playing, I wasn't really in a race with anybody. There was just a different mentality back then. I think this is why I think MMOs felt better, because we didn't feel as though we were having this invisible marathon race with complete strangers, or we had something to prove to others. It was literally a game that was a very self experience. Like it was just you in this game. And
Mhm.
whether it was Arcade, whether it was Star Wars Galaxies, whether it was World of Warcraft, whether it was Ultima, EverQuest, Arcade, it doesn't really matter. I think many players back then were like, oh, this person is max level and I'm 40 levels behind. Like, at least I have something to look forward to. You know what I mean? It was that kind of mentality. But now in 2025, we have been in a very much an invisible race of like hitting max level as quickly as possible. What's the best routes? How do I get the best gear? What's the quickest way to do everything? Like, I don't want to play the game really. I want everyone to have everything figured out so I can look at this guide on my second monitor and do everything as efficiently as possible. Do you think that mentality in itself not only has ruined like games like probably like Ashes of Creation, but just MMOs in general?
Probably. I mean, especially once things start getting designed for that.
Yeah.
Um, once you start designing for the end game sort of player that's trying to raid, max tier raid. Um, yeah, I mean, I think you lose it for the rest. You're right. Vanilla WoW was not as easy as it is now. It was easier than EverQuest,
Oh,
but it was
definitely.
one that
Yeah.
you definitely it was one. But you had stuff to do. I think there was not this comparison. If anything, you just look to the other people. Like I can remember times trying to find. I needed to enchant an item and there was only one person on the server that had that enchant, and so you would log on trying to find them and buy it from them and stuff like that. But like it wasn't like this competitive. Oh, I'm pissed off because this guy got this thing and I didn't get it. I should be able to get it. Um, EverQuest was the same. EverQuest was not at all respectful of your time by any means. I mean, think about well, I don't know if you ever played it, but corpse runs. I mean, you could be, hour 4 or 5
Yeah.
in of a 6 hour run, and all of a sudden you got to spend another 3 hours just trying to get your corpse back so you can get everything that you dropped. Um, people complain now about Ashes of Creation's death mechanics. Like, go look at EverQuest. Actually, go look at even Pantheon. Pantheon today, a modern MMO, you drop everything when you die. So it's not that bad compared to where it could be.
Yes.
But EverQuest, you had things to do. Like you didn't. It wasn't all about getting to 60. Like the thing I wish people would implement more, and maybe the time's just come and gone to where it just can't happen. But you could be in your levels, I want to say 25 to 30, somewhere in there, maybe 32, but you could start raiding. Max level was 60, but there were legitimate, difficult level 30 raids. I think like Castle Mistmore and some of these other areas that you could go. And um, it gave you challenges along the way. It wasn't just about getting to level 60. And you were happy with that, or at least I was. Like I knew people in my guild that were well on their way to planet time raids and things like that. Sorry if people don't know what planet time is, but I was fine with just hanging out doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that doesn't. Yeah, you're right. That sort of mentality is not. It's not easy to find anymore. But
Well,
I think part of that has also been the design. Like a lot of these games, there's just not. There are not carrots to jump at in the mid game. Like it's you spend your time learning it, and then you just want to get to the max level. And there's not been a lot put in the middle. And I don't know if that's money, if that's design time, or what. But
I think it's because most of the time developers just use the leveling as a tutorial. And because everyone knows, well, end game is everything, well, let's put everything at the end game, right? So it's just everything's meaningless until end game. And I think for Ashes, I really don't know if that's going to be the case. I could be wrong. Like, it could very well be the case. Who knows? But all I know is that whenever I was playing Vanilla WoW back then, I remember almost every level bracket. I remember being in my 20s, like trying to find groups for Shadowfang Keep. I remember being in my 30s for Scarlet Monastery. Like I remember hitting 40 and doing the, ZF dungeon rate. Like I remember like all this stuff because it took definite amounts of time for me to get there. And again, this is when I actually had a shit ton of time to play the game. But there was many times where I just didn't because I was doing other stuff. I was actually in a band. And we'd go out and we'd do jam sessions. So I would just go out and do that. Right. So
nice.
like WoW wasn't really like all encompassing as it came probably more in my late 20s. My late 20s, that was real bad, but early 20s, not so much. But I feel like it was just kind of this mentality where, me and my buddy that showed me WoW was like, hey, you want to go on and play? You know what I mean? And we'd get our laptops out and we'd just start playing together, right? It almost felt like a 2-player N64 game that we were playing together. It had that vibe to it. And, I just been talking to my wife a lot recently, and, my wife's like, man, like she kind of doesn't want Ashes to come out because she's like, I'm never going to see you. You know what I mean? Your kids aren't going to know who their dad is. And I'm like, no, like I'm definitely going to still be here. I feel like I'm at this time of my life now where, when I do have time, I used to play WoW, and I feel like it would be awesome if there was a game that I can log into that I have almost like years worth of like stuff for me to do. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm very much looking forward to Ashes, because it's like every level bracket is going to be something of an achievement similar to back then. And because I don't really have the time to grind at a POI for 8 hours, like every single thing that I'm going to do has to kind of be intentional. Like, or maybe not. Like maybe I'll just go in and just fuck around, who knows? But I think that's, to me, there's so much alleviated pressure. When I look at Ashes in that mindset, I feel like, oh man, this game's gonna be great. Yeah, I'm gonna be left behind, but who gives a shit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care because I've been waiting for a game that actually has like things and challenges and little quests and treasures and things to discover, people and like things like I remember when I was level 38, I was grinding in Tenaris and I was on a PvP server and I just literally spent my time like in this like battle royale that was going on in Tenaris. And I was like a ret paladin. I sucked. I didn't know how to PvP this that well, but I had a blast. I literally did that all day. And I just love moments like that, right? Like, and I still remember that like many, many, many years later. And I think MMOs are about cultivating experiences. But I think people value too much to be in a race with a complete stranger to have like, well, I hit this level first or I got this thing first. And again, some people really enjoy that. And I'm not trying to take away what you enjoy, but a lot of people don't enjoy that, but they feel like they're forced to do it to remain competitive. And I don't know, maybe it's my old age. Maybe it's just like my old man thing where I just don't care. Like, how do you feel about it?
Well, I don't know why everything needs to be competitive.
Yeah.
For one, like that, well, I know why it is. It's because the head honcho, Mr. Steven, is up. Risk reward, everything's. It's a you got to be the best, got to be the best. So, and that's the sort of mindset that it comes in. But I think in general, people are not super good about setting their own goals, and so they do go by whatever the designers are sort of pitching to them. Versus, you know what, that sounds fine. You guys go race for a raid boss number, first in the world. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try to pick some flowers and I'm just going to have a good old time. Like I think it's hard to find people that will do that. It's
Yeah.
interesting when you talk about the leveling at POIs, because I do also see this as potentially a problem for Ashes. One of the, when we talk about World of Warcraft, vanilla World of Warcraft, even EverQuest to a degree, you could solo and small group in very viable ways. Like that was 100% um, possible for leveling, especially when he got into vanilla WoW. Obviously there was elite group content, but then there was a lot of solo stuff. Ashes, on the other hand, I mean, really solo stuff, it's very hard. um, Even at things your own level. Um, so I do worry when we talk about a server that's existed 6 months or more, and so your main starting player base has had a chance to max level, in a game that doesn't necessarily encourage a lot of alts and things. Like, at what, is that going to be an issue for new players or for people who are slower? If I come in, am I really going to be able to find a group for level, 25 Am I going to be able to go to Highwayman Hills and actually find a leveling group? 12 months into the server's life.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. And when all of your content really requires that, well, so far, I mean, we've not seen story arcs, we've not seen quests, so who knows? Maybe there will be some solo slash small group friendly stuff that gets put in, but really your main methods right now are to be up parts of large groups. Is that something that's going to be possible as the game progresses? And I'm not sure it is. It obviously is going to entirely depend on how many players you get attracted to your game, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, I know in
so I don't
Vanilla
know. That,
WoW, they didn't have quests. They added almost over 1,000 quests very late. It was like I think the last year it was in alpha that it finally went into beta and it had all the quests that we know from Vanilla WoW. So, and that was feedback they got from the friends and family, was because there were some quests and there was feedback like, man, I just wish I can just do these things to level, because it was very much like you go
Mhm.
to a certain spot and it was like this kind of POI design, or doing like getting each level or doing reaching this level to do Ragefire Chasm, and then you grind there, and then you do this, right? So it's like, I don't know, like I Ashes is meant to be grindy. Steven said that it's meant to be grindy, like, but so is Vanilla WoW. Vanilla WoW to me back then, it took me almost 4.5 months to hit max level. Like, and again, this was back then, completely, just doing what I wanted to do, right? That's kind of unheard of today, because most you could level from 1 to max in a single day in most MMOs. But the reason why I mention this, Phantom, is because don't you feel like the demographic of Ashes is like 35 plus that has a full time job, a family, kids? Like, wouldn't you think that, you know, like, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, because everybody in my guild are dads, they're family men, they have full time jobs. Like, and I'm thinking to myself, who are the people that are like, is it the retired military vets that are playing Ashes like 24/7? Or like, who is it that's played all day? Like, you know,
I don't know. That's a great question that we
I
can
don't know.
probably pop in the Discord and ask. um, what do you do? Um, that's an interesting thought because actually, I've been pondering this with New Worlds now, closure and presumably the Lord of the Rings as well.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
the MMORPG genre just an aging genre? Like, is that what are we actually seeing a big shift now with that? With the what was the was it yeah? So they're the other MMO that was canceled as well, and then you have the Ghost as well. That's I guess not technically canceled, but the funding's been pulled and they've not
It's on
found. I
it's
mean,
on
so
limbo.
yeah, so you step back and it's like, wow, like what is happening here is part of this. It's an aging group that actually spends time in these worlds, and we're actually just seeing the genre age out. I don't know because I've never in any of the testing phase. I mean, we'll just talk about Ashes. I've never hit 25 on any of the testing phases, but at this point yet, I just
Same.
haven't. Um,
People make fun of me all the time, Phantom. All the
I
time.
mean, it is what it is. I don't have, I've gotten close, but like,
Me too.
we were gifted characters, so I've got to experience 25 for a little bit, but, um, and I've sort of level set with myself. So it'll be interesting to see because you're right. You're going to have the because I do think there's also a younger group that likes PvP that's involved here as well. But a lot of your core MMORPG players definitely are hitting their, mid late 30s, 40s, 50s. I mean, even when you look at EverQuest, you're talking about 60s plus 70s. You
Yeah.
know, what actually might start to wrap into having more time available when you're retired. But
True.
I don't know the genre. I worry about where it's all headed
I'm just worried about
going forward.
the the design, right? Because we're so old, dude. Like, you know, like I don't know. Like
Well,
I wear gloves, you know what I mean now? Like I have carpal tunnel by both my hands. So it's I just I feel like this game is developed for sweats. But I feel like any MMO is, right? Like
mm,
people want content, people want like there to be an end game. And if you look at it in that lens, it's like, well, every MMO is meant to be for sweaties, for people that can play all day every day, because it's a live service game that is ongoing, that has consistent updates. That's what MMOs are. But I just think it's more of a mindset, because it's like, again, all of the people in my guild, we're going to go hard, but all of us are going hard in the time frames that we have to play. You know what I mean? And I think for me, like what I'm going to try to do is have like maybe when Ashes launches, I'm going to do like the first 5 days and just play as much as I can. You know, I'm going to stream it, I'm going to play and just have fun. And I'm just going to do whatever I want to do and, and just level, you know what I mean? Just have fun doing that. Um, but I think of course I'm going to go back to just like everyone else, right? Like you're going to have your week off of work, and then next Monday rolls around and you're clocking back in. And then now you're going to be playing Ashes for, you're going to be maintenancing your account from that point forward, right? You're only going to play like maybe 2, 3 hours, 4 at most, if you're lucky. And that's that.
yeah, I mean, when you look at the successful games right now, you basically have your nostalgia groups. I mean, you have World of Warcraft, which I think is also just a solid game. They've made some changes that have really improved it and modernized and brought people in. Um, so you have existing IPs like World of Warcraft, like Final Fantasy. But when you look at more sort of newer entries, I mean, you're left with things like mostly a lot of Eastern MMOs that have mix in a lot of mobile components
Pay to win.
and Yeah, and so I wonder, when you talk about sort of the modern gamer, it's a fast pace, don't have a lot of time, attention spans are slow, are less. And so you do start to, I can see why a lot of these places go to mobile slash PC, because they can grab back that group that can just play on the fly while they're on their phone, that don't have the time anymore to sit at a computer. I'm not advocating that everything should be like that or that Ashes should become a mobile MMO, but I do think it says something when the MMOs that are coming out are largely in that sort of design. And a lot of the ones that are more classically designed are getting closed, um, or funding taken away, and all of that sort of stuff. Um,
I I think MMOs are almost becoming extinct. I think there will be, of course, like your big ones, World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, Final Fantasy, but I think outside of that, I don't know, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope there is sort of like a renaissance that could potentially happen with the genre. But I think every genre kind of has its time, and then people just move on. You know, kind of like remember when battle royales like popped out of nowhere, and then it
Mhm.
was that section of time for battle royales, and it was like Fortnite, and it was CS:GO, and just all those things, right? And and before that, it was like there was like certain things of like MMO genre had its time, and then it was like first person or first person shooters like Halo or Call of Duty, and of course people still play those things, but I feel like even first person shooters like still have like what's the word, like a cycle to it. You know what I mean? Like, and so I don't know, maybe if we're just in this long winter cycle of MMO of MMOs, man, because there's the other problem with MMOs specifically is how long they take to make and how much money it takes to make them. Like if you compare that to a first person shooter, oh man, or you compare an MMO to like a survival game, it's
Yeah.
peanuts to planets. You know what I mean? It's such a huge comparison. And so I think most of the time with these billion-dollar companies, they'd rather make just a very less ambitious game because they can churn out a profit probably with that more so than a game that they're going to be putting in hundreds of millions of dollars to potentially get that
Mhm.
back within 4 or 5 years. That's the other problem too, is that if you're going to do like a subscription, that's why most people do subscription with box costs, at least with microtransactions, because they want to try to recoup all of that lost money as quickly as possible. And I wanted to ask you this question.
Mhm.
Do you think Ashes should have a box cost?
Um, I mean, I don't know how much it would add, to be honest.
I mean, $1 million or $1 million, a million players plus with like an extra $40.
I gotta say, I don't see Ashes getting a million players, but if they did, sure. Um, I think I would be fine with that if you wanted to. I think you're probably at that point starting to cross a line though, where a lot of you will probably get a lot more complaints about, now you have not just cosmetics and a sub, but also a box cost. I do feel like one of the bigger
Draws.
issues that
Oh,
PAX Day ran into,
mm,
there's a lot of like upswing for PAX Day, a lot of excitement. This looks cool. It's going to be fun. And really one of the biggest areas where they kind of failed, and the sort of public sentiment really flipped on them, was when they announced their monetization, and they announced basically we're monetizing everything. Oh, you're going to have, there's going to be a sub, and there's going to be a box cost, and we're going to do like a Plex like item, and everybody's like, you're just getting money from everything. So I don't know. I do think that if you then add on a box cost to Ashes in addition to a sub and a cosmetic based system, I mean, I'd be fine with that. But I think you potentially run a lot of people getting upset about how many different modes of monetization there are. What I think they should do, I would be fine with this. I don't know what the legality of it would be. Um, and I don't think they will, because they seem to be a very legal uh, averse company. They don't really want to have lawsuits. Not that
not
every
most.
company does, but they seem extra sort of averse to things, based off of how they handle. sort of the name and shame of exploiters and people in Discord that they won't let us do. But I actually think they should just reopen all of their skins. Like I think if you reopen 4 years of your pack skins that you sold, that I get it. They were announced as exclusive or whatever. Once they go away, they go away. One, I just think it's dumb. I don't think you should reward. I think it's, I don't know. For me, like the idea that this guy over here gets a really badass set of skins because they just happened to hear about the game 2 years before I did. I don't know, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. But they did announce it that way, so I don't know that they'll change it. But I think that would immediately potentially open up a lot more revenue um,
Or
to
just
just
do it,
doing box cost.
or just do it in a different color. Because my thing is, and they said
Yeah.
this before with the pre-order packs, was that all these skins will actually be obtainable in game, but not with this color scheme. So this color is specifically uniquely for you because you got a pre-order pack. Da 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 da. Dude, wow! When they make a raid set, has like 8 different colors to that raid set. You know what I mean? Like you, Intrepid could just easily make a different color of every single thing and just slap on like, hey, this is another cosmetic you can do that's like an old one, but with a new color to it. You know what I mean? So I don't think that'll get them in trouble. And I actually kind of expect them to do that because they have, like you said, since when did they start doing the pre-order cosmetic packs? Like in 2018, from 2018 all the way till 2023, basically.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Um, and even I actually look at some of them that have been released. I'm like, well, damn, I wish I had bought that. Like, I would buy that now, but I don't have that option.
This,
Stufferton's one of those. I wish I'd bought a Stufferton way back when, but I didn't. And so
yeah,
I think, but I'm also somebody that, admittedly, I mean, I play a fair amount of gotcha games, so I don't mind the aspects of sort of cosmetic slash
neither do I.
components, but
I kind of wish, like, the only thing I wish with cosmetics is that you couldn't equip them at level 1. Like I would hope that each cosmetic has like a certain like level to it. So like if you like the one cosmetic that you have, like the freaking Sauron looking amazing one.
yeah, that's
And what's so pissed me off about that is that was July. That was the July 2021. That was the Alpha 1 pack. I missed it. I got the August 2021 pack, which was the Renkai one, which I still love the Renkai one, but God, I freaking wanted 1 month
oh yeah.
prior. I wish I'd have got it.
But see, did I actually know that I was getting arguably what I think's the best looking skin? When I bought it back in 20, probably not. I thought it looked cool on art in the art side.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I would just like the opportunity to go back and purchase some of those things again.
Yeah.
And you're probably right. I think if they probably already have plans that, if this was a red black scheme, maybe we'll reintroduce it in a blue black or something, color combo.
Well, this is another
Uh,
contentious thing too. I don't know. So the whole monthly subscription model, $15 a month, this has been the model for a long, long, long time. Do you think Ashes, considering it doesn't have a box cost, should be maybe a little bit more expensive than $15 a
hmm.
month?
Again, the fact that they're doing cosmetics, I don't know, because I think I would be fine with like $20. I think that would be okay. It's interesting because that's been the one thing that's not. I mean, you can go back and look at ads from 1999, and EverQuest cost you $15.
Yep. It's been the same.
The fact that we're 20, 30 years into the genre, into this sort of, and it's the same price as is sort of interesting.
Well, the power of 15
But
bucks
yeah,
back then compared to the power of 15 bucks now is,
oh, for sure.
is totally
Yeah.
different.
I think you could very easily, obviously, make an argument for going to $20, inflation, whatever you want to call it. But again, what's the perception? People expect, um, just psychologically seeing a 2 0 versus like a one, seeing a double digit number start with a two rather than a one, like is just sort of immediately going to flip um, sort of complaint wheel of the brain for most people. That, oh,
Right.
you're charging this too much money, and
Well, that's why you would do
I think that's why
19.99.
exactly. That's what I was about to say. That's why you see things that are like 19.99 or 99,
Right.
$99 instead of $100. Um, but I mean, I think you could argue that subs probably are undervalued right now, and they could probably go up just to help offset some of that cost. But again,
Nope.
I also don't mind. I mean, I'll be someone that spends stuff on cosmetics, if anything, just to help. I feel like if I'm playing especially in free to play games, like if I don't mind giving them a little extra for the people that made it.
Right.
Um,
There's because
so,
gotcha games, you're talking like a lot of the Eastern games, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh my God, I'm blanking on that
Like Genshin
one.
Impact,
Genshin Impact. That's what I was thinking of.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is a solid game. And actually, I
Yeah.
think when you look at, it's interesting when you talk about MMOs. Well, Blue Protocol just got released. I have a hard time calling that an MMORPG.
Never
That's
played it.
maybe what they'll say, but it's sort of a session based instance dungeon game that you're playing with a few friends. And I think part of why we see MMOs starting to fail so much, MMORPGs, is because you do have these sort of MMO lights. You have games like Genshin Impact, which are actually very solid games. They're super fun to play, that you can play with a small group of friends.
What's that new game
You
that
know,
came out? It's like what you said, like a session-based dungeon game, and it's sort of like
oh,
WoW.
Fellowship.
Fellowship.
Yeah, Fellowship. Yep.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like you're getting these other games that are solid, that if your goal has always if let's say my goal in an MMORPG has always been playing with a small group of friends, like there's a lot of other games that are coming out now that offer that are not these big sort of grand games. A lot of the gotcha games do that. The other thing that is sort of an interesting conversation piece too is I think MMORPGs, I would say they were probably the first social media. They were really a place where people would come to meet new people,
Oh, absolutely.
and so they served a huge purpose there, which was just making friends, meeting new folks. And that, I don't think that's the case now. I think now
No.
there's so many other areas to connect with people, and it's almost incentivized not to meet new people. Like the world today, like we become so centralized. Like if you're not part of my clique, like, and don't think like I do, I don't want to meet you and hear your opinions. Um, that 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 very important function that MMORPGs serve for us as groups as also just sort of dying away as sort of a use. I think that's part of what Steven talks about, the community side, wanting a group based game where you have to focus on community. But I think in the past, MMORPGs were successful in a community level because there was just nothing. I mean, you didn't have Twitter, you didn't have these other places where you could go
Discord.
and chat with people online. I guess you had AOL, but and now you have all sorts of things, all sorts of places you can go and hang out with people of your own kind, um, of thought, and um, and perspective, and games that you like. You don't have to necessarily look for friends in an MMORPG. Um,
I think,
anyways, it's sort of this
yeah. I think there's
interesting
just
idea of social media.
no, for sure. Bad Season, one of my favorite WoW YouTubers, came out with a video about MMOs recently, and he was talking about that, like how MMOs were like pretty much like the first social media platform, and how exciting it was to meet new people like states away or countries away, and there was like a novelty to it. And I feel because of Twitter, because of Discord, because of just all these other things, that novelty is really dead. But we don't, why is it that we want to play an MMO surrounded by moving NPCs and not want to play the same game on a dead server? What's the difference? You as a solo player can still do everything, but why is it, does it feel
Mhm.
better to be surrounded by people knowing you don't really want to interact with them? But why does that feel better? Is it creates this comfort that if I ever do want to, it's available to me. But if I'm on a dead server, I'll never have that opportunity or that availability to it. And I think that to me is what makes MMOs really special to someone that has a solo mentality. And I do feel, and people have said this to me, and I disagree. Ashes could be a solo game, but it takes a very kind of unique player, and especially unique solo player, to play Ashes solo. I think there's certain, games like World of Warcraft where, yeah, you can play World of Warcraft, completely solo. You can play classic WoW completely solo, because there's guides, there's things that could help you through things if you don't know or whatever. But I think, there's a lot of players within the genre that have been wanting something more of a challenge. Because let's just be honest, like a lot of that stuff back then was just a lot of cannon fodder. It wasn't really that difficult. I would say probably the more so the older MMOs had probably more difficulty to them probably than the current ones. Like I feel like everything now is just so meant to die so fast. You're going to be so overpowered. And I feel like, there was a lot of, like, you can actually die in vanilla WoW. Like, you can. And it's kind of funny because
Mhm.
in Ashes, I see people dying to goblins, like at level 3, level 5. Like when I'm over there in
Neat.
Koralok, and I'll just see a mage like shooting fireballs or whatever, and then they just die, they just disintegrate. And it's like, I love that because MMOs don't really present challenge, especially at the earlier levels. And I think it's important to know that you could fail and fail early. And knowing your decision making actually has, like, you have to have some kind of a process to it. You just can't go ramboed out in this game. And I think that kind of creates this kind of mysticism, but also this sense of danger. I feel like the sense of danger is important in an MMO. But
I'd agree.
um,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, we've been talking for over an hour. So I just noticed right. I was like, oh shit. So dude, yeah, I really, I don't know what else I can talk about. I mean, there's so much else I could talk to you about when it comes to Ashes specifically. I guess before we end off, where would you like Ashes to be in 2026? Like in next year, let's say first quarter, like at the end of March, what do you think Ashes of Creation looks like? What new things do you think we'll have to play with? Do you think the game's going to change that much from now until March? Like, what are you hoping, expectations? What?
Hopefully by March, we'll have seen the summoner successfully introduced.
Oh,
And with that in March secondary starting, hopefully.
oh,
Um, Also, hopefully, we will have a successful sort of the Harbingers system working, and mainly with that as a story system that's working, and so that we are starting to get more story like content introduced in March. Um, I don't know that we get there. I mean, again, Harbingers, we've not had that on PTR yet. Like it's 3 weeks
sure.
away. Hasn't been on PTR. Guarantee things are going to be broken when we try it. So, I mean, and that's no shade at Intrepid. That's just the process of testing.
Yep.
And so if they don't get that out in November, then you're talking about December, and then you have holidays. Are we going to get a December, mini release, kind of like how we had the what was it, phase
Two.
um, 2 start, which was kind of a mess. So I don't know. My idealized world, yeah, in March you're seeing the start of some of the secondaries, and you're seeing some more introduction of the story systems. Next year, when just in general, I still stand by the idea that I think they're moving towards a beta at the end of 26. And I'm okay with that as long as the whole year is spent fleshing out the Western continent. Uh,
Would you rather them
what?
do 2.0 revisions of the existing biomes than work on the other continent?
Yes. Oh, yes. I would much rather than flesh out what they got. Um, I would rather have one continent that feels really badass than two that just feel very mediocre and underdeveloped. Um,
Yeah.
You know,
I'm actually
I would,
I'm same.
oh yeah, I would much rather them flesh out all of the biomes we have, do your POIs. I mean, add your quests, add life to the world. I'm tired of the same 5 or 6 different mob types that we have or whatever. You know, if I see any more goblins, I'm going to shoot myself, but or whatever they're called, things that scream. Um, you know, like give us
Uh,
more
yeah,
in this area. And I think people will like that. And then, you know, that equally just makes sense to me because then you can release, and then you automatically have expansion material because you already have the Eastern continent. It's already kind of planned out, and you can just start adding it piece by piece. Um, but you know, so those would be my two sort of March versus the rest of the year. It's the biggest thing we're missing is the story. I mean, there's just no, you know, there's nothing to tie us to the world right now. There's no
yeah,
reason to give a shit about any of the POIs, any of the NPCs, um, because there's just no lore there. There's nothing to actually make you care about what's happening in the world beyond competition with other guilds. And you know, so hopefully
yeah.
once these story arcs get put in, that
I
changes.
I know they've been trying to keep lore under wraps, but I think it's a very bad decision to do so. You don't have to tell us because again, we're only talking from level 1 to 25.
Mhm.
Who cares? It's literally an interlude. It's chapter 1 through 3, you know, in the grand scheme of things. There's going to be more, you know, so I think in order for us to actually be invested, like you're saying, I think it's actually important to show us like why are we here? What happened to Sanctus? Like actually feel that investment from players. And it's not everybody. Most people, like,
Mhm.
I would say, I'm not going to say most players, but there's a lot of people that don't even care about the story. But there's a lot of people that do, you know, and it would be another thing to really grab you know, Ash's creation hooks like on those players to be like, wow, this story is really cool. I'm way more invested now. Like, even though it's
Mhm.
still very dry, a lot of baseline systems are still not working, or, you know, whatever placeholder things, I don't care because this story has me hooked. So I think it's very important for them to do that. Phantom, brother, thank you so much for giving me your time. I know we've been planning this out for like weeks, it seems, and you've been a
Yeah,
busy,
you
busy
talk about
man.
that. You talk about gamer dad time, man. Time does not exist right now. But
Uh,
no, this is fun. I always love doing this.
yeah, man.
One of my favorite content creators right there.
Oh, no, dude, y'all are the OGs, man. Like I always look at you and Diggs and Nero, and you know, I really thank you guys for still sticking and keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like I was watching y'all's last show, and you know, it's Diggs is so funny, man. I need to have Diggs back on. It's been a while since I've
Mhm.
talked to him. I would love to talk to him now, especially with, you know, being a year into Alpha 2, just to pick his brain, just to see what he would say about things. I have to reach out to him.
You
But
should.
dude, yeah.
He will say them. So,
Oh, I know. I know. And so where can people find you at, Phantom?
so everything at Theory Forge. It's a little confusing because it's I do go by Phantom X, but everything is Theory Forge. So YouTube, Twitch, um,
Yep.
TikTok, all of that at Theory Forge. So stream Saturday, Sunday mornings, typically 6 a.m. to, well, 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central.
Okay.
Um,
And there'll be
so
all the links will be in the description below if you want to go check them out. And of course, thank you guys so much for watching. This is what, episode 119 of the 1v1 podcast now. Whew, it's wild.
nice.
Yeah, next week I'm going to be talking to a person that is a no lifer in Ashes. He is one of those people that lives in Ashes. So a lot of opposing views that 1v1 is going to be. So it's going to be kind of interesting to have a conversation with someone that is literally bipolar opposite a lot of what my own sentiments and feelings. I think it'll be a good conversation overall to see kind of like where his mindset is comparatively to, you know, a lot of like people in our position, right? The casual dads of Ashes, you know, where we just don't have the time, man. Like it just is what it is. Guys, thank you all so much. Like and subscribe if you want to follow for more content. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, guys.